Welcome to Rauta's Black Metal Reviews, and this time we go all the way to 1980s, especially when we're talking about the very early days of the band in question. However, Archgoat, one of the oldest black metal bands coming from Finland, ceased to exist quite early on in the 90s, only to come back about 10 years later, early 2000s. Since then, the band has released 5 different full albums and lots of splits, EPs and whatsoever. So here we have the newest album in question, Worship the Eternal Darkness, a band album by the band that has been on the works for about 3 years. I don't know how many of you have been paying attention to the band's evolution or evolving with different labels, different music and all that stuff, but some things are left unchanged and some have indeed changed. Like, for example, the covers, the general style of lyrics, visuals, music, not changed so much. But then again, some details have indeed changed, especially with this one and the last one, in my opinion at least, giving even more room and space for kind of old school black metal, and that is nods to bands like Bathory and Venom. Now, I don't know how much this is intentional, how much that is just unconscious. Doesn't really matter. What matters obviously to people is that if the music is good, and once again I can really tell you that it is. Now, Archgoat has never failed to do good music in my opinion. There are no clear weak links, but of course some albums are better than the rest, and in my opinion this one definitely goes to the department where things are a little bit better. Now let's open the band's Metal Archive site. I'll give you a little bit more background and maybe you can get a little bit more understanding what's going on with the band. Now, as you can see, the band started indeed earlier in the 1980s and made a couple of demos and EPs before going into hiatus. And since those early days, there has been a lot of lineup changes in the drummer department. Not so much with the brothers, the twins, who have been making guitars, bass lines and vocals, basically all the songwriting along the lines. So in those terms, the very core of the band has always remained the same. Guitarists doing the songs, obviously, and vocalists doing vocals and all that stuff. And that is how the band actually performs on stage as well. 3 guys, drummer and these twins doing the strings, instruments and vocals. That's the very core of it. Now, some people consider Archgoat purely to be in the same set of school as bands like Blasphemy and Beherit in a way, but obviously there are clear differences. Whereas Blasphemy is more into the metallic and more fast-paced and chaotic all the way, whereas Beherit has been always very much into very obscure black metal, and that's where Archgoat falls in between, especially with this album, because a lot of these songs are quite slow tempo black metal. One could say they're Black Death because of the growly vocals versus rather raspy or shrieky black metal vocals, but that is up for debate. In my opinion, this is okay to be called Black Death or just old school black metal. Both are very okay. Now, there are faster parts also included, especially towards the end of the album, which then again creates nice diversity with the album. You can pretty much enjoy the slower parts, which are almost like doomy ways to create old school black metal. And then there are these definitely more energetic parts, especially tracks like 6 and 7, which are definitely more energetic and kind of faster. Now, mention that track number 6, it's actually very interesting, and I have to check out the names because I really can't remember at this point just yet. Rat's Precard, that is very, very much old school black metal song. Like I said, this is kind of a song that reminds me of Venom and Bathory. Maybe Bathory more than Venom, but you get the idea. Definitely 1980s vibes here. But what is more interesting is that some of the riffs here on other songs remind me of bands like Inquisition. So there is a really, really nice blend of things happening here. You find these death metal roll vocals, you have these riffs which are kind of like doomy because of the pace, and riffs like Inquisition, and then you have these faster parts which are definitely more in the Blasphemy school. Maybe not so much buried overall, but there is definitely some kind of a similar past with the bands starting early on in Finnish black metal scene or extreme metal scene, and having the kind of a really dark feeling all over the place. Obviously, there are these kind of synths, mainly just kind of like some church bells doing the random ringing noise, and as such creating the rather gothic vibe. Gothic with quotation marks because it doesn't really maybe get related to gothic bands and such. There is something very, very medieval feeling in that sense, if you get my drift. Now, but the lyrics, my eyesight is not what it used to be. I don't have glasses, but this font is rather unreadable with my eyesight unless I'm in a really, really bright environment, which I'm not at the present moment. But when I was, browsing the lyrics, well, they kind of point out that this is very typical Archgoat in the sense of being anti-Christian, pro-Lucifer and Satan, and, deeming God to be destroyed or whatever. So nothing has changed in that department, not too much anyway. Some people will find it boring, some people will like it because it's kind of a pure and basic black metal in so many ways. But I don't know if we can call it that much, original and such. But then again, I don't know why this should be, because Archgoat is not one of those modern third wave black metal bands that are trying to push the envelope to do something different, but rather go into the very core of the very basics. Late 80s, early 90s kind of a black metal thing, and that's where Archgoat rules. I don't know why they should change too much. All this diversity coming from the ideas with their rather simple but effective riffs, and then these tempo changes. I think that's enough to do the deal here. So my final verdict on the album is, it's good. It's not the best of the year, but it's definitely enjoyable and was up to my expectations, which were not low, because I've liked quite a big part of their previous works. Like the previous one, which is probably my favorite thus far, this is very much on the same level of quality. A good album and definitely a solid band to be checked out. So I hope you give it a listen, I hope you check it out. It comes out on 26th of November 2021 and already premiered on YouTube, and at least one song is already out on the band's site before the actual release. So give it a go, and I hope you like it. Looking forward to your feedback and comments. Cheers.